On everyone, welcome to episode 4 of the podcast. This is Miles, and I'm here for another super special episode with my guy Kamal, who's actually located in the Northwest and works in software sales and is the founder of Jagaban Capital, online Instagram and Twitter handle where he shares his wealth building insights and tips and tricks he's picked up along the way. So I'm super excited to have you on here, man. So if you want to give a little introduction for yourself before we get going.
Yeah, man. Thanks, Maz. Really appreciate you having me here. Like you said, I'll make it short and simple. Yeah, my name is Kamal. I'm founder of Jagaban Capital. The reason why I created that brand was really to inspire conversations around wealth creation, just because, and you can probably relate to this. It's not every time you have to find specific or go to specific places if you're interested in the process of, creating wealth, right? Not everyone is comfortable talking about that subject. There's some sort of stigma around it. So, for some reason, I don't know why, but luckily for both of us, we found Money Twitter and Wealth Twitter, and we have that group. But outside of that pocket, there isn't a lot of avenues, per se to discuss subjects like wealth. So, anyways, that's the reason why I created Jagaban Capital. About me, I'm 28. I've been in software sales for the past 3-4 years. I've been in sales about 5 years in total, and I absolutely recommend everyone, to get into that. You do some sort of sales yourself as well. So I'm really excited to hear about how you got into it for sure. But yeah, that's it. Anything else? I don't know. I just went all over the place there for a second.
So one thing I definitely like to touch on, and so it's actually, right on your Instagram bio, and we mentioned it prior to speaking, but 330 or 350K, at least as it's documented in the Instagram bio, it's probably changed a little bit since then, in net worth over just 3 years. So I'd love to hear what sparked that. What was the mindset shift? Was there any specific moment, or was it a combination of different things? So what did that look like getting that started, and how has it, progressed over the few years?
Yeah, absolutely. So my story started back in 2016, and this was late 2016, and I decided I wanted to be intentional about, just building wealth, right? So for me, it was, I went about it the whole brute force approach, just doing a lot of research, a lot of trial by fire, trial and error, making a ton of mistakes along the way. But, you touched on one key thing. You said mindset. And I think this is really, really, really important for anybody that wants to go on this journey. It's before the build an emergency savings fund, before start saving and investing. Number one is mindset, because without that, once the going gets hard, you fall off the wayside and you get discouraged. So for me, that was really the first step. And luckily, I kind of had that ingrained in me over time, just over the years. So it came naturally to me. For other people, it may be sort of a more difficult process, if you will. They might have to reset something fundamental in the way they think, but it is certainly important. And so once I made that decision, I just did all the research, started investing in index funds originally, and then over time I found out there were so many ways to make money off the markets. In addition to index funds, there's individual stocks, there is trading. If you decide you want to go down that route. Not a lot of people are built for that, by the way. So there's certainly
I'm sure not.
For that. Absolutely. So I've done a little bit of everything as far as like the stock market is involved. More recently in 2020, I started dabbling in trading and finding out there's ways to build my network in that process as well. So over time, I grew my portfolio to like you said, $350,000, and it was a combination of all of those things. And then I pulled some money out and invested in other things like real estate. I have property outside of the U.S. Again, really the importance of diversification going into context here.
You said outside of the U.S.?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
very interesting. I'd love to hear a little bit about that if you talked about that, because I've actually my first episode was with a guy who invests a lot out of state real estate. So I'd love to hear about the process on what that looks like for out of country investing. Actually,
For sure. For sure. You want to jump into that right now?
I would love to hear it. You see, I've already learned something really awesome and new about you just off that point. So I'd love to hear about that.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. So for me, so it's just land. I have land in Nigeria, where I'm from originally. So for me, it's unique just because I have family and people that I can reach out to, and
Yeah.
boots on the ground. I think is really important. By the way, this is true for whether you're in Maryland or you're trying to invest in Cali or vice versa. Like you need boots on the ground in the local area that you're trying to invest in. So I had people that I could reach out to help me vet the process. So, and some people on Twitter talk about sending your dollars out to go work for you, and each
Yes.
dollar that you have
Yeah.
having a function. I found that if you can send your dollars out of the out of the country where the buying power of the dollar is even more emphasized, then you can take your net worth process and journey a lot further. So that was a strategy I used. I took my dollars outside of the U.S. where they have more buying power, accumulated a bunch of property. The play there was primarily for appreciation, not cash flow. So my strategy was appreciation. It worked very well for that. Going forward, I'm going to pivot to cash flow strategy. I'm going to start buying real estate within the U.S. That that cash flow. So
Yeah, that's something you mentioned on that pin tweet was actually work in real estate, but I had no idea you already owned property, and I really had no idea that it was actually out of country. So what got you into that? What were you researching, and what does that whole process look like?
So what got me? I mean, I've always thought that I'd end up in real estate somehow. Like the very first book that I read was, about just the whole process of building wealth as Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah, that's the same
And
one. 2 years ago in November was when I read that, and that really changes the way you look at a lot of things.
absolutely, absolutely. So, for me, it was just natural. I just needed to, I tend to research a lot before I make the move. So I've been stuck in research phase for this cash flow part of my strategy for a while. But like the land, just buying land and holding it, it was just straightforward. I had people back there. I researched sort of areas that were prime for appreciation, a lot of development, and I just made the move. Depending on where it is you want to go and invest in, the strategy might be a little bit different. But the one thing that I think is key is you definitely need boots on ground, whether it's you going there or having a team or reaching out to Facebook groups or whatever. You definitely need to go check out that thing before you buy it, for sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
and so was it financed or did you buy it cash, or what are the specifics on it? I'm curious to hear that.
Or I bought it cash. I bought it cash.
Yeah, and you
Um,
talked about taking your dollars out of the country because they go way further, and there's not at least many large plots of land that would be cheap to buy cash. You know what I mean? At least domestically. So that's definitely a cool insight that now you're holding it and looking at that appreciation. And there's lots of different things because that's yours. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
you could build on it, you could flip
yes.
it, like you could hold it, like we talked about. So it's definitely a very interesting play that I've really never heard many people at all talk about. So that's definitely cool to get that perspective in. And so now you have that appreciating over in another country, you got the stock portfolio, and now you're looking to move into domestic real estate as well. So what do you think that's going to look like in the next few years for you?
Oh, certainly. I start with a goal. And I always like to make my goal like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Shoot for the moon, and if you fall on the, how do they say, shoot for the moon and you fall on the stars or something like that.
Okay,
Anyways, my goal.
shoot for the stars, and even if you land on the moon, you made it pretty far. Something like
Exactly. There you go. You got it. Hey, Miles, you're the man. I have an arbitrary goal, 50 doors by 2025.
that. Hmm.
And so for me, the first step was figuring out where I wanted to invest in. So I was stuck between Philly, Detroit, and Baltimore, because I lived in Maryland for 8 years. So I think I'm gonna go to
Both,
Baltimore
we
route.
both follow Aisha, and she does a ton of work in Philadelphia for sure, and that's really cool because she documents a lot of it. And I've seen you guys.
Absolutely, absolutely, and she is my inspiration as well for getting started. She, as well as this other guy on Instagram, Dog Dap.
Oh,
I've
I
been
know.
following him for a while.
Yeah, those are both two big inspirations, and he, documents a ton. Like he's walking around property every single day, and
Mhm.
also has a massive brand as well, over 100,000 followers. So
Absolutely.
they're two great examples that there's lots of opportunity in Philadelphia for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's it for me in terms of like my next steps for sure. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be tough though, but I welcome the challenge, so.
Yeah, for sure. And I think definitely working in sales, I don't know if you're, cold calling or what that looks like, but that's definitely a challenge, because each sale, you might have a salary as well, but each sale, that's what you got to eat off of. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. So, so mine is different in the sense that there's a base piece to it, and there's also a commission piece to it.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
always say, the more your commission, and if it's uncapped in terms of, the bar that you're allowed to sort of get, even better, because then you're directly responsible for how much you bring in. And it's scary, right? A lot of people are like, F sales, I don't want that. I don't want to have anything to do with that. But I'm like, man, like if you're young and you're hungry enough and you're aggressive enough and you want it bad enough, then go into sales. So that's one reason. The other reason is there's a lot of talk about entrepreneurship and building your own business, especially in our corner of Twitter.
Yeah, for sure.
And people say just jump right into entrepreneurship, but like that's not everyone is going to survive that. That's literally like jumping off into the deep end. Some people are natural swimmers. For some people, they're going to struggle a little bit. And how about you go in there with a life float, right? A life jacket. And sales, getting started in sales, getting your feet wet in sales is kind of like, building blocks, if you will, of getting your feet wet and learning the ropes before jumping all into entrepreneurship. So I recommend that for sure.
Yeah, and so have you always been your entire professional career in a sales position, or did you go to school and maybe started with something else, or what did that look like?
So for me, I studied engineering in college. Both my undergrad and graduate degree were in engineering. But I always say I sort of stumbled into sales, and I'm thankful for it. Like I didn't plan it. I didn't know what I was going to be doing with my degree when I graduated, but kind of stumbled into it. I found my first mentor, and I loved it since day one. I mean, it's been painful. Don't get me wrong. Like so many lessons learned over the years, but good lessons that apply to the whole principle of building wealth, good lessons that apply to the whole sort of just life in general, right? You get so many no's. Like no one, it's funny, no one prepares you for your first no. Like no one prepares you for your first $1 million deal that you lose, right? I remember mine very vividly to this day, so.
Yeah, and a lot of that type of stuff isn't taught. You might give presentations in, college on that kind of stuff, but there isn't a lot of like interpersonal like negotiation tactics or like from people who actually do it, you know what I mean? And I'm sure it's a ridiculously hard thing to teach, but me, I do a little agency work, like social media wise. So just, calling people and, cold emails and everything, that's taught me a lot just in the few months I've been doing it. Just, providing value over the phone, building rapport, showing them that your service is worth it. Cause obviously I'm sure, that the product you're working with is great, but they don't necessarily know. So do you have any resources like that you've learned from on how to, different negotiation tactics and all that, or has it been a lot of trial and error? I'm sure it has been with that. So what does that look like, the process of you becoming the master salesman you are?
Master salesman. I'm not a master salesman. I got a lot of work, man. Got a lot of work to do. And it's a learning process every day. There's tons of resources. There's books you can read. I'm blanking on good ones right now. But number one, the most important, I guess, teacher is experience. Just
Yeah.
repetition. Just put in the reps. Just like going to the gym. it's gonna suck. Like it's scary. Like it's like, well, shit, like what if they say no? Like what if they, like everyone is scared of being told no. Like it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's you're going on a date or trying to, get
I would
something
say
and get,
people
yeah,
are so fearful about posting content, especially like, and I'm sure it's
yeah,
very similar, but
yeah,
filming themselves and everything like we're doing right now
absolutely,
is
absolutely,
ridiculously hard at the start. But that first video, that first phone call is a lot harder than the 50th one. You know what I mean? And it's just a
absolutely.
breakthrough. Like, we each post on social media for strangers. You know what I mean? We're searching
Mm-hmm.
to meet, to network, and everything. And it's that
Mm-hmm.
mindset shift, at least content wise. I think a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
that they're so used to posting just to get the most likes at a low frequency, when we're
Mm-hmm.
firing all over the place looking to meet people, selling to strangers and everything.
Yeah.
I'm sure that relates a little bit in a sense, and I'm sure the boldness that you've learned throughout your career has definitely helped transitioning into building the brand on social media and everything along those lines.
Yes, you bring up an interesting point. And I actually hadn't thought about it that way until now. So for me, the social media piece was certainly a learning process for me. Like I I only just learned how to properly use social media in 2020. Like, how there's this documentary on Netflix called The Social Dilemma, and a lot of people on Twitter also talk about the fact that people are on social media for the wrong reasons. Right, they're letting social media use them, and just scrolling endlessly and doing dumb stuff. I decided to start intentionally using Twitter in 2020. So created a new profile. Same thing with Instagram business page, right? And I found out that the people that I'm constantly being exposed to, I'll use Twitter for example, as a case study. I mean, like, I met you, all the hundreds of people that you and I probably even follow, together, and every time I get on there, like, I don't feel like I'm wasting my time. Like, I'm building connections. I'm learning something new, right? We're making this connection to have a podcast. And it's like, and this content that we're creating, it's, someone else is going to come watch it and learn from it, right? So kudos to you, by the way, for creating this avenue, right?
Yeah,
For
for
people to
sure.
come
And
learn.
I honestly made the decision last week, and I was listening to Casey Adams. He has
Mhm.
the Rise of the Young podcast, which is awesome. I was actually listening to it earlier today. I was like, there's a lot of people who I know in my own circle that I would love to, learn little bit about, ask specific questions that I know can, give value to other people as well. And so I just started, and I mean, here we are 4 episodes in. We got, awesome guests coming on. Definitely excited for the future of it. But once again, like, yeah, if I had never posted the first Instagram post I made for strangers without telling anyone I knew back in 2019, like, none of this would have happened. And it's
Absolutely.
taking that first step, you know what I mean? And then
Mhm.
the way I see social media relationships is, all right, so workplace, school, whatever, you're around those people every day. So you don't really have a choice, but with without interacting with them. But social media, we only hang out and talk to people if it brings value to each other. So that's why there's such healthy relationships and such productivity out of it, in my opinion, at least.
For sure, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
careful not to stray outside of the pocket of goodness.
Yeah. And so how did you find all this stuff? Was it, one person on the,
Yeah.
trending page, or what did that look like for you finding this little corner of Twitter and then the whole, money community throughout social media?
Yeah. So the person that led me to money Twitter was Chris,
Mm-hmm.
CJ Johnson, and I actually found him through my old page. I got his course, then deleted that Twitter because there's nothing.
Yeah. I mean, it was
It was
just,
useless to me, right?
yeah.
So I deleted that, started from scratch.
Yeah.
And I ran into people like, Brandon, Aisha, just a whole host of people that just, just giving just great value.
Yep.
And then that also spurred me to start thinking about, look, I know stuff too, like, and I'm sure there's people out there that that are like me, like I
Yeah,
was
one
back in
one step
2016.
one step below, 2 steps
Absolutely,
below, just getting started, all that. And I'm sure
absolutely.
you made mistakes along the way that you're then, helping people that won't have to make that mistake on their
Hey
journey.
man, you hit it right on the head. You hit it right on the head. And it's like, let's make their own journey easier than mine was, And there's more than enough to go around. Like,
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know,
For sure.
there's more than enough, you know, goodness. There's more than enough, you know, energy. There's more, you know, wealth is like energy. I say, like, it's not finite. So let's go get it.
Yeah, so I'd love to transition a little bit to talking portfolios wise. So we got in a little bit at the start, so you do have some real estate holdings and looking to add to that in the future. But what
For
does your,
sure.
stock and equities holdings look like right now?
Absolutely. So I had this post that I said that I made, and I said I have 5 brokerage accounts, and I
Oh,
do
Art, I remember
frequently.
interacting with that. I didn't remember that it was you, but yeah, for sure. And you broke it down really nicely. So if you want to
Yeah.
break that down, that would be awesome right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, I started with indexes, right? So I started with Vanguard, my index portfolio, and that's like 5 figures. It's a 5-figure account, and that is super low touch, no effort needed. Just show
Exactly.
up,
Yep.
put money in there, and let it do its thing,
They'll
right?
be paying you some dividends later next week or so before the end of the month. It's obviously it's the end of a quarter, so Vanguard's gonna be paying us both nicely coming up. Yep, you got
Absolutely,
the Vanguard
absolutely.
position, and what do the other ones look like?
Yeah, and then I have an E-Trade account that is mostly a combination of dividend stocks as well as growth stocks. And right now, and then in the future, that portfolio, I'm going to expand it into just areas that I'm extremely bullish on, like you know, big data, you know, AI, autonomous driving. Like, I'm looking at a bunch of companies that they call them SPACs, special purpose acquisition something. I
Yeah,
can't
I didn't
remember what
know
the
what
C
that
stands for.
what that meant, but I'd seen it a lot on the timeline. So now that's cool that I do know what that means.
Yes. So that's where I'm gonna be, because I'm young, and my investing persona, which is actually really important for people to figure out early enough. You know, is your investing persona? Are you aggressive, or you have a high risk tolerance? And for me, the answer is yes and yes. So I am like dead end long term, and these are all long term holdings, by the way. So Vanguard is long term, the E-Trade is long term. So that's like a 6-figure account, but I'm going to be more aggressive in growing that going forward. I also have a Fidelity account, which is also 6 figures. I don't talk about that much on social media because it's boring, and it's just 401ks, and it's, again, that one is relatively mechanical, right? Show up, put the money in, and don't touch it. So those are the 3 big ones, and then I have 2 that have started in 2020. One specifically for options trading, which I'm still shit at. But I don't know, or you're allowed cursing on this.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
All right, excellent. What I'm learning, right? There's a lot of, you know, with trading. So one thing I learned is, yes, there's ways to make money, you know, while trading, but it's a different persona, it's a different psyche. And where I messed up when I first started was I was conflating my trading with my regular investment account. And I said, well, why not just break it out? Why not just have an account dedicated to just trading? So when I open it, my mindset just immediately shifts to, okay, I'm doing options trading in this thing. I'm not going to get just distracted or sidetracked by something else that's going on in the, you know, with a stock that I'm holding long term, which I absolutely recommend for people, you know, newbies. If you're just starting off, break it off. It's free. Like, there's no reason why you shouldn't have another account specifically dedicated to doing something that you need to do. So
Yeah, so I just do indexes right now, but I'm actually the way you are with brokerages, I do with bank accounts. So I have, business bank account, personal checking, and then, Ally savings as well. And I'm
mhm,
probably going to open another one soon to actually just deal with tax money.
mhm,
So that's definitely good perspective on, diversifying things. And the point you made about separating trading and investing, or CJ had a really good tweet about that. It was like really quick. It was something like know when you're trading and know when you're investing, and then like they're very different things or something like that. Yes, you have
for
the
sure.
Fidelity, the Vanguard position, as well as the E-Trade, and then and Robinhood as well for options, or
No, I use TD Ameritrade for, or sorry, I use Webull for
okay.
options, and then I use TD Ameritrade for swing trades. So
Hmm.
I do some swing trades on, like, long term positions, medium to long term trades that I hold for a while, and, you know, as long as the check box is, excuse me, as long as the checkbox. You know, the daily price is not below the 20 MA, and there's still like it's still in like in a stage two, you know, stage two movement, and stage three, not in stage four decline. Then we're good. And I just hold it and let it do its thing. And once I hit a certain profit threshold, then I sell. But again, that's like, it's not, I would say effort is moderate for those two. And then options is like a lot of work, for sure. At least for me, just because I'm just starting. But again, if you don't explore these different routes to making money, and you know, then you might take you know, I'll say a more measured, slower approach to building it, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to explore, you want to be aggressive, depending on persona, then for sure explore.
Yeah. And so what does that capital allocation look like based on your risk tolerance and everything? And how did you actually come up with that? Or like, do you have set allocations on this percentage goes to options, this percentage goes to long term, and what does that look like?
Yeah, for sure. So based on the size of my entire portfolio, right, huge, 6 figures, I only allocate like 1-ish% as capital, for 1 to 1.5 to 2% as capital for each trade. Okay, and the plan is, and I don't take too many positions at once. It used to be 2 to 3. The mistake that I first started making when I started was I would do a lot at once. So I do 1 to 2 trades, 1 option trade, maybe 1 or 2 swing trade positions, and kind of let them play out, and take the profit from those and use them to buy either more dividend stocks or more like just growth stocks. So I take, CJ says, buy, you know, get income, get money, buy income. So that's basically the strategy. And I don't like to complicate things, right? I see something that makes sense, like a trade setup that makes sense to me. I put the money in, and if it plays out, it plays out. If it doesn't, I learn to cut my losses.
Yeah, for sure. So just tying things all together. So if you had, is there one mistake or maybe a lesson learned that you would share and maybe, you know, tell to your younger self or someone that's maybe just getting started out on their journey? If there's one main thing you would tell them, or concept or book to read or something like that, if you had, you know, one main recommendation to your younger self, what would that be?
Book to read, Get Mud to Millions by Aisha Seldon.
Yeah, I read that back in July, and I've actually started recommending that over Rich Dad just because Robert Kiyosaki tweets so crazy sometimes. I can't.
Yeah, I love her book. It's so short and sweet and to the point.
Yeah.
You know, it just hits all the you know, all the nails on the head. Like, it's just like boom, 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 do this, and, you know, and get it, and which kind of aligns to my philosophy of there's no reason to make this thing complicated. Like, in my experience, anyone that's trying to make something complicated is either trying to scam you, you know, make you think that you don't know, like make you feel like you don't know this thing when you really should, or they don't know what they're talking about, right? So it's simple. It should be simple. And if something isn't, then maybe you're trying to go down a resource path that's making something complex. Like find something else, right? So there's ways to make these concepts very simple. So just to tie it back to your question, recommendation would be to read that book, Multimillions by Aisha Seldon. For me, the one mistake that I made that I wish I didn't was I paid cash for my car in 2017. And by the way, so let me provide a little bit more context. I paid cash for, it was a Mercedes. I always wanted to get a Mercedes for the longest time. So when I had the money, and I didn't understand credit. So I was just like, I need to pay cash.
Yeah,
I don't want to owe anything.
Yeah, that's the same thing with buying a home in cash.
Right.
You can do the math that obviously compounding interest, you know, it outweighs typically most or compound interest, you know, the appreciation of the stock or the asset would outweigh, you know, the interest rate. But definitely, I mean, a lot of people have screwed up financing Mercedes. You know what I mean? Like, you have the cash to do it at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you want to talk a little bit more about that?
So the lesson on that is I should have financed it because the interest rate on the car, I could have made more like invest in with that money. So I paid, I just that 30, I always think about that 30, 32 grand, whatever it was, 35, I can't remember the exact number. I could have invested that over time. Right?
Yeah, the market's been so good since then. But once again, I mean, hindsight's 2020,
Absolutely, absolutely. But let's maybe a lesson that's more general is try just build that mindset up front, just that discipline. It's like a muscle. Like just build it. Start early. Start now. Start investing now. Like every day you have extra money, just show up and throw it at the markets and or real estate or whatever it is, whatever your business is, and reinvest that money back, whether it's through dividends, whether it's profits from your business, whether it's cash flow from your real estate property. Just put that thing back and let it grow, and just sit back and reap your benefits 10, 20
Yeah,
years from
for
now.
sure. Couldn't have said it better myself. So definitely appreciate you coming on the podcast today.
Mm-hmm.
If you have any final thoughts and want to let people know where they can find you on social media.
You can find me at Jagaban Capital, Jagaban Capital on Twitter and Instagram.
And that'll be linked below as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And like just reach out. Like I tell everyone, like I'm an open book. My journey, my mission is to inspire conversations around just building wealth. And whatever it is I've learned, I want to make sure that I'm passing it on to the next generation, like the next set of people that come.
Yeah, and especially on Instagram, those little, really nicely designed, one-liners you put out in the actual visual form look really good as well. So definitely check them out, both on Instagram and Twitter. If you have any questions, you can DM either of us. If you're listening on YouTube, I'd love if you could leave a like and subscribe. And if you're listening on a podcast platform, I'd love if you could leave a rating. But definitely appreciate you coming on, and I will see you guys on the next episode. Thanks a lot.